What does it take to be the happiest man on earth? Eddie Jaku, a Holocaust survivor who lived through one of the darkest chapters in human history, claims that happiness is a choice. Through unimaginable suffering, loss, and survival, Eddie emerged not with bitterness, but with hope and a mission to share his story and help others find joy. In this video, we'll walk through Eddie Jaku's life, chapter by chapter, as told in his powerful memoir, The Happiest Man on Earth. Prepare for a story of pain, perseverance, and profound wisdom from a man who, against all odds, chose to smile. Chapter 1. There are many things more precious than money. Eddie Jaku was born in 1920 in Leipzig, Germany, into a loving and culturally rich Jewish family. His father, Isidor, originally from Poland, was a proud German citizen who had once worked in America before settling in Leipzig and opening a factory. Eddie's parents believed in strong moral values, family unity, and kindness above material wealth. Friday nights were sacred, marked by Shabbat dinners, homemade challah bread, and a warm, familial atmosphere that extended to the less fortunate. Eddie's father would often share their bounty with those in need, reinforcing to Eddie that a man's worth isn't in his bank account, but in his heart. Eddie's upbringing was idyllic. Leipzig, a city celebrated for its art, music, and intellectual tradition, was a haven of culture and tolerance. Jews had lived harmoniously there for centuries, contributing to every layer of society. Despite being culturally Jewish, Eddie and his family identified as German first. They celebrated holidays, kept kosher for his grandmother, and lived a life of modest prosperity and mutual respect within their community. But beneath this serenity, Germany was changing. The Treaty of Versailles had crippled the economy, and the people were desperate. This desperation paved the way for Adolf Hitler's rise. When Hitler came to power in 1933, anti-Semitism became state policy. Eddie, just 13, was forced to leave his beloved school for being Jewish. His father, determined that Eddie would still have a future, arranged for him to study mechanical engineering under a false identity, Walter Schleif, at a prestigious school in Tuttlingen. For 5 years, Eddie lived a lonely, secret life. He couldn't reveal his identity, not even in the shared showers, where his circumcision could betray him. Despite the isolation, Eddie excelled. He became a top student, revered by his teachers, and was eventually inducted into an elite engineering union, a prestigious recognition of his talents. But this moment of triumph was bittersweet. Eddie longed for his family. He wept at the union ceremony, knowing his parents couldn't be there to witness his success. Those 5 years taught him a painful but powerful lesson, that no accolade, no education, and no amount of money could replace the embrace of family. Chapter 2. Weakness can be turned into hatred. Eddie's biggest mistake came on November 9, 1938. After graduating, he decided to surprise his parents on their 20th wedding anniversary by visiting them in Leipzig. Unaware of the growing violence against Jews, he arrived home to find the house empty. That night, he was brutally arrested by Nazi soldiers during what became known as Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. He was savagely beaten, his arms bloodied, and a swastika was carved into his skin. His beloved dachshund, Lulu, leapt to protect him and was stabbed to death by the Nazis. Dragged into the streets, Eddie was forced to watch as his family home, a house that had stood for 200 years, was destroyed. Everything he had ever known was taken from him in a single night. This night didn't just mark the destruction of physical property, but the shattering of Eddie's identity as a proud German. His neighbors, once friendly and familiar, joined in the looting and violence, shouting slurs and encouraging murder. This was the beginning of Eddie's understanding of how desperation, fueled by weak minds and manipulation, could turn ordinary people into monsters. Chapter 3. Tomorrow will come if you survive today. After his arrest, Eddie was taken with other Jewish men to a hangar at the zoo and then to the notorious Buchenwald concentration camp. Because of his severe injuries, the camp commander feared he would die and become a scandal, so he was sent to a nearby hospital. There, a kind nurse warned him. If he escaped, The Nazis would retaliate by killing his family. After recovery, Eddie returned to Buchenwald. He quickly realized that despite being surrounded by educated, civilized people, cruelty reigned. His friend Kurt Hirschfeld, also arrested on Kristallnacht, became a vital emotional support. The camp was overcrowded and brutal. Prisoners were packed into stables once meant for horses, starved, beaten, and dehumanized. Guards opened fire on prisoners daily under the guise of escape attempts. Yet Eddie survived. A Nazi guard who had once known Eddie under his false identity, Walter Schleif, recognized him and spoke on his behalf. This guard convinced the camp commander that Eddie was a valuable engineer. He was offered a job making tools for the Nazis, which came with the opportunity to be released for Buchenwald. On May 2nd, 1939, Eddie's father picked him up from the camp. It was a moment of indescribable joy. That brief car ride felt like a return to humanity, a paradise regained. It taught Eddie the most powerful survival lesson. Even if today is filled with suffering, tomorrow can still come. Hope must be kept alive. Chapter 4. You can find kindness everywhere, even from strangers. Instead of taking Eddie to the factory where he was to work for the Nazis, his father turned the car toward the Belgian border. Their plan was to escape and reunite with Eddie's mother and sister later. A smuggler promised to take them across safely, but instead dropped them near the Netherlands. They crossed the border under the cover of darkness, hiding in a ditch as Nazi searchlights scanned the roads. Eddie made it across, but his father turned back to help another refugee and was caught by Belgian police, who beat him and handed him to the Gestapo. Miraculously, he escaped and rejoined Eddie in Belgium. In Brussels, Eddie's mother and sister had not yet arrived. When they were eventually arrested, the Gestapo used them to try to lure Eddie back to Germany. But when he spoke to his mother briefly over the phone, she screamed, "Don't come back. It's a trap," saving his life. Soon after, Eddie was arrested in Belgium, not for being Jewish, but for being a German national. He was taken to a refugee camp with 4,000 other Germans, including his friend Kurt. Conditions were humane, and Eddie even taught mechanical engineering at a university in Ghent. Life seemed bearable until Germany invaded Belgium in May 1940, and all the refugees were forced to flee again. Chapter 5. Hug Your Mother. Eddie, Kurt, and other refugees attempted to escape via Dunkirk, but were turned away. Eddie walked, alone and on foot, from northern France to the south, surviving on the kindness of strangers. Poor farmers and villagers, despite having little, gave him food and shelter without asking questions. Eventually, he was arrested again and sent to a primitive camp in Gurs, France. There, he stole tools from a French train station and used them to escape from a deportation train bound for Auschwitz. 9 men, including Eddie, crawled beneath the train and jumped off just before crossing into Germany. Eddie then began a perilous journey back to Brussels, traveling by night and jumping on and off moving trains. In Brussels, a family friend helped him reunite with his parents and sister, who were hiding in the attic of an old man's boarding house. For a brief time, they lived together again. Eddie repaired machines at night for a factory owner and traded cigarettes for food with a kind restaurant owner named Mrs. Cornant. Despite the fear, curfews, and hardship, Eddie felt happiness. His family was together. Even the presence of 3 hidden Jewish children could not break that joy. But this peace was shattered when the Gestapo finally caught them. Eddie's father saved the hidden children by giving one a handkerchief to silence a cough. Eddie and his family were arrested, but those children lived on, a final act of quiet heroism. Chapter 6. One Good Friend is My Whole World. After being arrested with his family, Eddie found himself in a transit camp in Malines, Belgium. To his astonishment and joy, he saw a familiar face in the crowd, Kurt Hirschfeld. The reunion, under such tragic circumstances, lifted Eddie's spirits. The power of friendship, Eddie would later say, is often stronger than we realize. Kurt and Eddie had endured so much together already, and now, amid more uncertainty, they had each other again. It reminded Eddie that one true friend could be a lifeline. Their joy was short-lived. The Nazis soon filled the required number of prisoners, 1,500, and packed them into cattle wagons bound for Auschwitz. The journey was inhumane. They had one drum of water and one drum to use as a toilet. The air grew foul. Many lost hope. But Eddie's father brought order. He used a collapsible cup and a rationing system to distribute water fairly. His organization saved lives. In their wagon, only 2 died, while in others, dozens perished from thirst and despair. Kurt's presence made the nightmare slightly more bearable. They shared whispered conversations, memories of better days, and silent promises to survive for each other's sake. Even in hell, a true friend was a flicker of humanity, of life before horror. Chapter 7. Education is a lifesaver. At Auschwitz, the prisoners were separated by Dr. Joseph Mengele. Eddie and his father were torn apart. His mother and sister vanished into the crowd. Eddie was selected for labor. When asked about his skills, he told the Nazis he was a mechanical engineer. This lie, or rather, this truth built on years of his father's foresight, saved him. His training and the forged identity of Walter Schleif had given him a skill set rare among prisoners. He was sent to a work unit where his job was to repair machines, often under impossible conditions. Each day, he watched men and women die from starvation, exhaustion, or execution. The guards were ruthless. Mistakes were fatal. But Eddie knew machines. He repaired what was broken, built what was needed, and stayed alive, barely. In those moments, Eddie saw how education wasn't just for employment or prestige. It was for survival. His knowledge gave him purpose in a place designed to strip all meaning from life. That education, once a lonely burden in Tuttlingen, now became his salvation. Chapter 8. If you lose your morals, you lose yourself. Auschwitz tested more than endurance. It tested ethics. Eddie watched men betray their morals in order to live another day. Some stole bread from the dying. Some reported others to curry favor. The Nazis thrived on this. They knew that the best way to destroy a soul was to make the victim complicit. Eddie refused. He chose starvation over theft, dignity over survival at any cost. He remembered his father's lessons. A man is worth more than his bank account, and more than his ability to live another day. Morality, Eddie realized, was the last bastion of freedom. The Nazis could beat him, starve him, humiliate him, but they couldn't force him to become like them. Even in Auschwitz, Eddie chose to be kind. He shared his ration with the weakest. He lifted others when they fell. He would not trade his soul for a slice of bread. This moral clarity became his strength. It reminded him that he was still human, even when the world told him otherwise. Chapter 9. The human body is the best machine ever made. Auschwitz wasn't the end. Eddie was transferred multiple times, each camp with its own horrors. Yet he survived. How? He marveled at the resilience of the human body. Despite starvation, disease, frostbite, and beatings, his body kept moving, kept repairing machines, kept drawing breath. Eddie began to view his body as a miraculous machine. He stopped asking why this was happening and started focusing on how to endure, how to take one more step, how to breathe through the pain. He learned to listen to his heartbeat, to find comfort in the rhythm of life still ticking inside. This mindset helped him push past hopelessness. He began to believe that if his body could survive, then maybe, just maybe, he could live to see the sun rise in freedom again. The Nazis tried to destroy his spirit, but every breath, every step was an act of defiance. Chapter 10. Where there is life, there is hope. In 1945, with the Allies advancing, Eddie and thousands of other prisoners were sent on a death march. It was winter. Food was scarce. Anyone who fell behind was shot. Eddie stumbled forward through snow, exhaustion weighing on his bones. But he kept going. Eventually, he collapsed and was left for dead. He crawled into a forest, hid in a bush, and passed out. There, in the silence, he waited to die, but fate intervened. American soldiers found him and saved his life. Liberation had come, not with a parade, but with a whisper, a hand extended from the darkness. Eddie was taken to a hospital. There, surrounded by kindness and clean sheets, he wept, not just for himself, but for the millions who would never feel those sheets, never taste that bread, never see freedom. Yet he also wept with joy. He had survived. He was alive. And if there was life, then there was hope. That became his mantra. Even in the worst moment, hope had not abandoned him. And now, he vowed he would never abandon it. Chapter 11. There are always miracles in the world, even when it seems dark. After his liberation, Jaku was weak, traumatized, and unsure of what life would look like beyond the fences of Auschwitz and the death marches. He had endured so much pain and loss. Yet as he lay in a hospital bed, slowly regaining strength, a miracle occurred. He discovered that his sister, Henny, had also survived. They had been separated during the chaos of the camps, each believing the other to be lost forever. The reunion was emotional beyond words. Two pieces of a shattered family brought back together. In that moment, Eddie felt the weight of loss, yes, but also the extraordinary presence of life's resilience. Against all odds, a sliver of his family had survived. This miracle rekindled a powerful truth in Eddie's heart. Even when the world appears irredeemably dark, miracles can and do happen. His reunion with Henny wasn't just a personal blessing. It was a symbol that light could still pierce the deepest shadows. It gave him the strength to begin rebuilding. Chapter 12. Love is the best medicine. Healing didn't come quickly, but love became the medicine that mended Eddie's soul. He eventually met and fell in love with a woman named Flor. She had also suffered, also carried her own scars, and yet together they built something new, a life not rooted in fear or trauma, but in mutual care, laughter, and compassion. Their love became a sanctuary. Flor was his partner not only in marriage but in healing. With her, Eddie found joy again. They married, had children, and created a family filled with love, something he once thought impossible after the horrors of the Holocaust. Eddie often said that the happiest day of his life wasn't when he was liberated, but when his son was born. Holding that child in his arms, he felt he had won. He had not only survived Hitler's attempt to erase him, but he had built a legacy that would live on. In love, Eddie discovered a powerful truth. When the heart is open, healing begins. No medicine is stronger than genuine affection and a reason to wake up smiling. Chapter 13. We are all part of a larger society. Eddie's post-war life wasn't just about personal recovery. It was about giving back. Grateful for a second chance at life, Eddie committed himself to being a positive force in society. He saw his work, no matter how small, as a contribution to building a safer, freer, and more compassionate world. He understood that we don't live in isolation. Our actions ripple through society. He taught his children, and eventually his grandchildren, the value of honesty, responsibility, and kindness. He instilled in them the importance of education, not just to earn a living, but to better the world. Eddie also became a volunteer educator, speaking at schools and community centers. He shared his story not to incite anger, but to encourage empathy and tolerance. His goal was simple, to ensure that no one would ever forget what hatred could do, and to inspire each listener to choose love instead. Chapter 14. Shared sorrow is half sorrow. Shared pleasure is double pleasure. In telling his story, Eddie found an unexpected reward: healing. For many years, he had remained silent about his past. The pain was too deep, but as time passed, he realized that sharing his experience didn't just lighten his burden. It brought hope and understanding to others. He began to speak openly about the Holocaust, the loss of his parents, the camps, and the small acts of kindness that kept him going. In doing so, he forged deep connections with audiences young and old. Many wept. Many thanked him for his courage. Some even said they would live their lives differently because of what they learned from him. By sharing his sorrow, Eddie felt its weight lessen. And in sharing his joys, his family, his values, his gratitude, he multiplied them. He saw how storytelling could connect people across time and background, and how it could prevent history from repeating itself. Eddie became a living testament to the human spirit. With every talk, every handshake, and every smile, he transformed trauma into purpose. Chapter 15. What I have to share is not my pain. What I share is my hope. By the time Eddie reached his late 90s and eventually turned 100, he had told his story countless times. But he never did it to dwell on the pain. He did it to share hope. "I did not share my pain," he would often say. "I share my hope." That became his final, most powerful lesson. In the face of genocide, Eddie had chosen not to hate. In the face of loss, he had chosen to build. And in the face of despair, he had chosen to smile. Every day, he woke up with the intention to be kind, to help others, and to make the world a little better. His message wasn't only about surviving. It was about thriving. He urged people to cherish their families, appreciate what they have, and find joy in the smallest things. Eddie believed that gratitude could change a life, and that a grateful life is a happy one. Even after enduring the worst humanity had to offer, Eddie declared himself the happiest man on earth. And he meant it, because in choosing love over hatred and hope over despair, he had found true peace. Eddie Jaku's life is not just a story of survival. It's a masterclass in resilience and hope. From the depths of Auschwitz to a century of life, Eddie chose to forgive, to give, and to smile. At 100 years old, Eddie Jaku reflects on his life. Despite everything, he believes he is the happiest man on earth. He urges us all to live with love, compassion, and gratitude. If a story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. Leave a comment with your biggest takeaway. What lesson from Eddie's life will you carry with you? Until next time, remember, life can be beautiful if you make it so.